This seems to be another event where Innovate has brought together the community of business innovators, folks that are trying to move the state forward, and their personal enterprises. It's a good group of people that want to see what can happen here.
Thank you so much for being here at the 17th Annual Conference on Technology Innovation. I want to welcome everyone here to our kickoff session before we get the day started through all the breakout sessions. It really is going to be an exciting day. And Innovate Mississippi has been looking into growing the coding ecosystem in Mississippi in a variety of ways. As a matter of fact, after today's luncheon, we've got a breakout group looking at an initiative we're calling Code Mississippi to do just that. And it's in that process that we want to make sure everyone is aware of some really great things going on in the state. And so we're so excited this morning to have folks here today that have been instrumental in the founding of the Basecamp Coding Academy. We didn't know Glenn Evans would be here with FNC. He's having to rush back up to FNC immediately afterwards, but I want to recognize Glenn for you being here as well, and in addition to our speakers this morning that are going to tell us a lot more about that. I'm going to introduce our two speakers briefly. I will one small note for the those of you noting on the agenda. Carla Lewis had an emergency come up this morning. She was called away. And so we've got Raybun Jones here with us this morning from Spire. Raybun is a Mississippi native, and through his time at Spire has grown to now be the Senior Manager for Systems Integration and Mobile Solutions with Spire. And he, together with Kagan Coughlin, are going to be our speakers. And Kagan is not a Mississippi native, but Kagan, after attending St. John's College in Annapolis, had been recruited to FNC after a brief time at Fannie Mae, and has really been transformative to the Water Valley community. If any of you are not familiar with the Water Valley story in terms of its restoration and downtown restoration and all of those things, it's been amazing. And Kagan and his wife Alexia have been pivotal to that Water Valley transformation, which is now culminated, and maybe even this is just step 2 of a 10-step process, with the Basecamp Coding Academy that we're going to hear a lot more about. So with no further ado, let me introduce the morning speakers, and first we're going to have up Raybun Jones.
Excellent. So as was already mentioned, I am Raybun Jones. I'm the Senior Manager of our Development and Mobile Services background at Spire. Filling in for Carla Lewis. Sorry she wasn't able to make it. She's like our A team player, so I guess that makes me like a B or C team player. And y'all just going to have to put up with me for that, but I promise I will try to bat well above my average here. And what we want to do, or what we're doing here today, is to talk a little bit from the employer side, what it looks like, some of the needs that we see as employers in Mississippi looking for top talent, as many of you guys are in the coding industry. So first, to talk about some of the IT initiatives and things that we are doing at Spire. Obviously, one slide can't really, contain everything that we're actually doing. I don't think you can see the pointer here, but we, chose several things to put on here to be able to just talk about. For example, we have our customer-facing website, cspire.com, sort of our employee-facing type websites, our CRM systems, our point-of-sale systems. All of these things are like in-house, built and operated. We wrote those ourselves. We have a mobile development team which puts out our apps like our My Spire app, which you can use to manage your Spire accounts and change your plans, make payments, things like that. We also have some other mobile development going on as well. We have a lot of customer account management support, the basics of what you need to operate your business for a customer to be able to log in, manage their services, purchase new services, all of that stuff. Obviously, we have to do a lot of analytics because we have to be able to see how we are performing in our business and how things are progressing. We're also involved now recently, probably in the past 2 years or so, in the hosted solutions and cloud services market. We have a large data center that we built. It's one of the only Tier 4 commercially available data centers that you can actually put your stuff in, co-locate, or use cloud-based services in this area. Also, we do the data storage management security as a service, all of those types of offerings as well. And a lot of that stuff, if you look at the bottom here, these 3 items here, these are like our 3 main lines of business from C-Spire. And I want to point out that 2 of these, so you start out with wireless here, which everybody we're known for that, right? But we move into some of these other 2 here, the fiber and then the enterprise and cloud services. These are new, right? These are new, completely new lines of business that we're spinning up. You're probably familiar with the Fiber to the Home initiative, bringing gigabit Ethernet connection, fiber optic connection to your home, and what kind of game changer that can be. But also, we move into the enterprise and cloud services offerings, which is internet connectivity for businesses, telephony, ability to co-locate your stuff into our data centers, ability to use our own C-Spire built cloud to build out and augment your IT infrastructure and everything along those lines as well. We actually, it's pretty cool because I like to tell people, we don't just like work using the cloud, we actually get to build a cloud, and that's pretty fun. Anyway, what I want to point out about this is that over these last 2 years, 2 new lines of businesses have sprung up. Can you imagine what that means and what we need to spin up in the amount of talent acquisition we have to find to going from one line of business, which is pretty well established, and we're even growing in that area as well, to now we're taking on new initiatives for us to be competitive in our market. We decided this is what's necessary for us to do. But the one thing that is really critical in that is we got to find the people. We have to have the people that can make that happen. Talking about some of our development stack, you just take a look at some of the types of technologies. We're very open source heavy. We're very heavy on development inside or in-house development. We found that we have to build a lot of the stuff that we want to run because not a lot of the things you can buy off the shelves match up with what we are trying to do or won't let us move fast enough to be competitive with the big boys out there. We're a large company, but we're competing against 600, 800-pound gorillas sometimes. So we gotta outmaneuver them. So some of these technologies here, they're very cutting edge stuff. The same technology sets that you'll see used in Silicon Valley are being employed here in Mississippi. And with that comes along the need to have the same talent levels, the same ability to recruit, the same types of individuals, coding backgrounds are necessary. So a little bit about our current staffing levels. So this sort of shows a little bit of that story I was showing in the second slide. We're currently at 164 full-time employees. We have about 70 contractors, and we have 20 currently open positions along all of these different, it's obviously it's not just the software side that we have needs in, but you can see many of these are software related. With this, the thing to key in on here is that we're having to run this contractor amount right here because we can't find the talent that we need to be able to run the lines of businesses that we need to run. Okay, so we're actually even involved currently in a conversion of moving more and more contractors to full-time employees as we're able to because we've seen the value in doing that. So there is a market here. Is I guess what we're saying, currently we already have open positions, and then some of those 70, we want to draw those down, but we just can't right now. A little bit about our sourcing. Where do we find our talent today? Obviously, we have a lot of traditional. We have our colleges and universities. Serves a huge purpose. That's where I came in from. So that's a big deal, and it continues to be one of our main sources of recruitment. We have our internal sort of HR teams, which are actually going out and trying to recruit and find talent. On occasion, we've used headhunters. We do a lot of electronic-based recruiting. We'll even do some stuff in the newspaper. We'll try anything, if we're still using the newspaper and all of that. But what's interesting about this, we really see that something along the lines of the Base Camp Academy could be a real boon to us. You saw the issues that we already have, the needs that we already have. We see this as being a new source of of talent that we can immediately I could plug them into jobs today. I already have 20 open jobs. I got 70 something that I'd like to convert. That's today. So obviously there is a need. Hopefully I've already convinced you of that a little bit from the perspective of Spire, but let's talk about from the perspective of national, and then let's drill down into what it looks like in Mississippi. So nationally, between 2012 and 2020, software development jobs are expected to grow at a rate of about 22%, whereas the average job growth is projected at just 8%. So you're talking about almost 3 times the rate of the economy's growth in this job sector. With that, the nationwide shortage of skilled computer engineers. So again, we have 136,620 computing jobs added in this time period, right here. 40,000 computer science graduates came out of our colleges and universities at the same time period. That's a shortfall of over 96,000 underserved job opportunities. 96,000. And obviously the answer to that has been traditionally, well, we use H-1B, we use whatever we can use to try to fill that gap, but we're still not making it up. The gap is still widening. In Mississippi, we have about 1,126 open computing jobs. That's 4.3 times the state average. 209 computer science graduates will be coming out this year from 14 different schools. So you can see the difference between the two is even more pronounced here in Mississippi. Some more background on this nationally. Projecting it out into the future, what we're seeing is that 1 million more jobs than students by the year 2020. So this difference is only going to get larger. It's going to grow very quickly. So much so that it's a top-paying degree, and the jobs are growing at least twice the national average. I said almost 3 times the national average, and yet we have a shortfall. So what kind of Mississippi industries are looking for this kind of talent? We're competing with more industries than ever for the same talent pool. So we have less qualified people in general competing for more across more spaces. You look at the sentence down there at the bottom is really what I would say is the summary of all this. It's easier to ask which industries are not competing for top IT talent today. It's critical that in any of these industries you have that kind of talent to be able to compete. From everything from education to agriculture, telecommunications, faith-based organizations, obviously the technology and software companies, banking, distribution, legal, investment, et cetera. So 67% of computing jobs are outside of what we consider the technology sector. So this is, the needs are just growing in these areas as well. 16% in manufacturing, 9% in government and public education. 12% in information services, 16% in financial services, professional and business services is 47%. So I hope that helps to present a lot of the picture of what we're seeing. And with that, I'll hand it over to Kagan.
So I'm going to quickly give you a rundown of what exactly Basecamp is. We'll have some time for questions at the end. At its core, it turns out that this is a most basic business 101, massive market demand, and how do we fill that demand? And a little pet passion of mine is sourcing locally. My wife has a grocery store in Water Valley, which is very big on that, and she teases me constantly about how I've stolen her idea, but for workforce development. So this is our mission statement. We are looking to take the raw assets of Mississippi, which are our untapped youth, and fill a market need, which is, that was a great rundown, thank you, a need that is all across the state. I can't tell you how many times we've spoken to employers that will explain to us their requirements for new hires. Certain degree level, 5 years experience on the job, which is such a great, and then they turn and they say, and here are all the unfilled positions. and something has to give. And the more folks that we've talked to about exploring an alternate path to a highly skilled, quick to job ready status employee, we have not hit any walls. It's kind of critical mass right now in the employment sector. These jobs need to be filled now. Nobody can wait. And so it's a perfect opportunity to explore alternate education paths. So exactly what we are, we function as a nonprofit. This has been very helpful in our fundraising efforts. Today we have zero administrative cost. Every dime that has come into this organization goes straight to our teaching staff and our utilities. But at the scale that we are at right now, we are able to deliver a fast-paced education to a Mississippi youth at a very low dollar figure. And these are the institutions and the people that have made it possible. So one of our theories, we had many theories going into this. Glenn Evans is my co-founder. This was an idea hatched over some beverages one day last spring. And there were some critical components, many of which we had no personal experience with. And one of the things I think we are good at is identifying our own limitations. So we went out to find people that had that area of expertise. It's interesting to start a school with no classroom experience. We ended up finding some amazing talent that are in the classroom right now. Going to the companies that could tell us exactly what they need today. So this was a slightly novel approach, treating our students as a product and going to our customers, the institutions all across Mississippi who need these folks in the workforce, and asking, what do you hire today? What types of software are you building today? What programming languages do you use today? This is not something that we are looking for you to hire this person, and in the traditional methods that we've used over the last, I think, 10 to 20 years, we've become used to hiring someone with the appropriate degree, and then you bake in 3 to 6 months of salary cost to get them up to speed to how your institution works. And that's in computer science, IT, that's everywhere. I talk to lawyers all the time who talk about the training period, or accountants. It's just a general practice of business. There's a sunk cost in a new hire. So we went to institutions that will be future employers for our graduates and said, tell us exactly what you need today. If someone walked in the door, what they need to be capable of to bring value to your organization immediately. And that is how we developed our curriculum. This is the product goal, that we need our students to walk out the door with this skill set. And then our expectation, for a number of reasons, because of the students that we are looking to educate, we expect to start from zero. So we're not asking them to have any skills gleaned from their public education, from home computers. Most of the students that we accepted this year do not have personal computers. They all have cell phones, which has been a great thing that we've been able to pivot off. But that became our gap that we needed to close, from zero to job ready for a level 1 software developer in a given time frame. And so these organizations, beyond funding this operation and giving us guidance, so Northwest, I think David Campbell, I'm going to come back to David Campbell, was very instrumental in many ways of getting this off the ground. These organizations both helped fund the initiative. They are our expected homes for our graduates, and they are guiding the product that we are delivering. And that product, especially in this industry, is going to be different every single year. Most of what new hires are going to need to know in 2018 doesn't exist today. And so our curriculum is constantly updating. This is our classroom today. It's on the second floor of a Main Street building in Water Valley, Mississippi. We've heard a lot of jokes about Virginia Woolf and creating a safe space and a room with view. But there's something very important about that. This is, if we've done anything that's different, we're giving these young adults a safe place and the time to refine these skills. So we haven't reinvented any wheels here. The training materials are available all over the place. Large organizations, Google and Facebook, Microsoft, have created all sorts of online interactive training tools. But folks of a certain socioeconomic economic level with certain home lives don't have the time and the opportunity to apply themselves and have that carved out opportunity to get ready for when they launch themselves. And having this, I watch these kids roll in every day, and they love this space. It's their tree fort. They walk in, lots of those students come in, they're working 32 hours a week after their 40 hours with us. These are young adults that they're hard workers, if nothing else. And seeing them throw their jackets down and sit in their spot and feel like this is where they have come, nobody's going to bother them, and they can apply themselves. It's a huge component that we didn't really understand the value of before we launched. This is our inaugural class. Every student here graduated from high school in May of this year. They had 7 to 10 days of summer vacation, and on a Wednesday morning at 8:30, they showed up for their first 8-hour day at base camp. Each of these students comes to class at 8:30. They spend 8 solid hours with 2 instructors focused on developing their software development skills. And if you think about your own personal educations, how that was spread out over time, how it was spread out across a week, how you might have had night courses, how you might have had 3 hours in class a week, and then you had to shift to another topic, go to a different class. These folks, 8 hours a day, practicing the same skill. And having hired many software developers in my career, I can say in our 5th month, these students I would hire today and expect them to be able to execute more than many graduates I've hired that have come in with work experience, because they are like a musical instrument. They were practicing every day for 8 hours. And is Josh Mabus in the room? He was here yesterday. Those are his front steps. We have the benefit of lots of eyes and lots of encouragement from all sectors across the state. This is novel. This is a new concept. This is zero cost to the students. They apply what they have, which is their time and their effort. And we have institutions that I showed earlier that are giving them this opportunity as a gift with the expectation that a percentage will stay in the state and help grow the future of all of our different businesses. So we have folks that are very curious and come by, and everyone who comes to visit, and I've invited a number of you already, to come and visit the classroom, see what we're doing, we ask that they give something back, share about what they do in their life, because most of these students have nobody in their life who has lived a corporate job, an IT, anything. And so it doesn't matter how many times we tell them this is a huge opportunity, the starting salary is north of $50,000. Every time they see someone who's actually living it, another bit of their disbelief goes away. So if you're ever passing through Water Valley, I'll buy you lunch, but you have to give us about 20 minutes. So this is our timeline. What we did is we went out and we sold as our business concept a 3-year pilot. And this was because there were so many unknowns. And we wanted to make sure that we had enough funding to execute 3 class years so that if some unforeseen thing occurred, we didn't want the entire opportunity for the other 2 classes or for all the other students in that class to be sunk based on something. And there was a lot we didn't know going in. What's worrying us now is we haven't had things go wrong. The students, we accepted 14 students this year, and we expected, honestly, 50% to stick through. We expected to burn out students. It's a long day. It's 8 hours. They're working their butts off. We have 12 students in their 5th month, and I'm pretty confident all 12 are going to see it through to the end. I got the sign. The curriculum, again, I said this a little bit, we took all of the companies that we had spoken with, and we asked them to send us their IT specialists, their leads of development. We put them in a room, and they defined the goal of where the students need to be at the end of the year. And we backed into, again, from 0 to that goal as our curriculum. This is courtesy of all of those folks we saw earlier. And this is something that is slightly different. This is the metric for success for our 2 teachers. It's also our personal measure of whether or not we have executed on our mission. Our goal is that each of our students will be employed when they leave us in the middle of May. And we have staffing that is set to continue our relationship with our graduates through the next 2 years after they leave us, to make sure the professionalism side, which is just as important to what we're teaching them, is also being executed, to make sure that they're showing up on time. Again, most of these folks do not have a role model in their life that knows how to go every day and to deal with personality conflict at work in a business appropriate manner. So we will continue our relationship on into the future. We rely heavily on our current teaching community to help us identify these students. So this was one of the big things that we didn't know how to do. So the diamond in the rough. How do you identify a student who does not have an alternate path to higher education, but has that work ethic, that drive? And so we rely heavily on the high school teachers in our public schools. And a student to be considered for acceptance into base camp, first a teacher has to raise their hand and say, I believe, based on the time I've spent in the classroom, that this student has it. Based on whatever. We're not looking at their grades. There's so many reasons why a student might not perform in a high school environment. So once a teacher identifies a prospect, we do aptitude testing, we do interviews, we build a relationship with every prospective student, which has been a little tough because there are some that we have not accepted. But we know these students very well, and we're heavily invested in every single one. This is our group. Something I'm going to push you a minute. Something I want to say about, I'm not a native Mississippian. I grew up on a farm in Vermont. I moved here from DC with my wife in 2006. Something that is culturally unique about Mississippi that blows my mind every day. This is, when I say we have zero administrative cost, I don't mean that we don't have administrative function. There is a lot that goes into making this organization work. And the folks on that list, this is our board, the amount of time that people have given, everyone has a full-time job. This is a passion project for everybody, except for our 2 teachers. And honestly, both of our teachers took pay cuts to come and work for us. Carla Lewis we're in Water Valley. She's running a giant organization in Jackson. There have been several times when Carla has gotten in a car and driven 5 hours in a day, a work day, to have lunch with a young woman who is a prospective student, to show that person what it means, what it could mean to that person's life. The number of times I pulled Glenn out of the middle of a business day to drive to a high school, meet a prospective student, convince an administrator to let us talk to the teachers. These folks, I can't quantify the amount of time and money that represents that folks have given to make this thing happen for no other reason than it's a good thing to do. And it's why my wife and I are here and it's why we're staying. I was here sharing simply the story of how base camp, we're in our inaugural year. So the students of our inaugural class are in their 5th month of an 11-and-a-half-month program. The story of how easy in the Mississippi culture, the support networks that already exist, it has been to put together the funding, put together the support networks with the community colleges, with the high schools, through the public education institutions, and identify the students, put them in a safe environment, and just let them go with the appropriate teacher and staff.
I'm one of the co-founders of Base Camp, but more importantly, the way that we saw the need and the genesis of the idea for Base Camp came from my experience at FNC, where we, like every other technology company in Mississippi or across the country, have a real shortage of qualified programmers. So we recognized that if we went out and found in these high schools around Mississippi, we knew there was great talent there, overlooked talent. If we could pull some of that talent in and connect the supply with the demand, that could be a win for both sides. And again, being the president of FNC and struggling, finding that talent, that idea really resonated with me. So I went to a former FNCer, Kagan Coughlin, and the 2 of us together came up with the idea for Base Camp, and FNC was one of the initial founding sponsors of that. Want to know more about it? We've got a great website out there. It's basecampcodingacademy.com, so all together, and take a look. It's great things going on there.